All right, guys, welcome back. We're going to go from page one now to page two. The employment thing always hangs people up. They skip it or they run through it or they don't know the information, so they just don't put anything and they get nervous. And so this section notoriously hangs people up, especially when they're going through simple nexus. So a 2 year work history is always required. Now, that 2 year work history can be your current W 2 job or a combination of self employed work and, Social Security and pension. And it could be a combination of anything. But every agency, every time needs a 2 year work history. So make sure you put in a 2 year work, right? If they've had 9 jobs in 2 years, you're going to spend a lot of time on this page. FHA is going to require them to verify. USDA is absolutely going to require them to verify. Down payment assistance is going to require them to verify every job they've held over the last 2 years. In some cases, even 3 years for down payment assistance files. So you want to make sure you're putting in correct information plus a phone number that they can call to verify that somebody worked there, right? Not the 1-800 Amazon, not Walmart.com's phone number. We need somebody that can verify that that employee currently works at that location. How many years in the line of work is important for running findings? If you're self employed and you've been in the industry for 5 years, technically you can qualify off of 1 year's of tax returns. So if you're trying to make that income work and only works on 2024, but not if you combine and do an average over 24 and 23, then you need to make sure they've been in business for at least 5 years and you might have something to work with. If they're employed by family, we absolutely must know that. It requires more documentation. You need to prep the employer that, hey, we know that so and so may not be an owner, but because they're your child or they're because they're your whoever, they have to prove that they don't have any ownership in the company. So there's going to be a Schedule C or a K1 or tax or something to show that our borrower doesn't have any ownership interest in the company. So that way they're inflating their income so they can qualify for a loan, right? So check that only in the event that the person actually works for the employer or the property seller or as a real estate agent or any party of the transaction because it does require additional documentation. Ownership interest, self-employed borrowers, okay? So those that are Schedule C, 1065, 1120S, any combination of their otherwise, those borrowers need to mark schedules if they're self-employed and how much ownership they have in said company. If it's a husband and wife, you got to split it 50-50. Even if that other person's on the loan, you're still splitting it 50-50 between the two applicants. If there's only one person on the loan and they still share it with a spouse, and you're only using 50% of that income because that other person isn't here. So make sure you indicate how much ownership they have in the company with the idea that if they have less than 25% ownership, they're not self-employed by definition. So we got to monitor that and stay on top of that. When you're doing self-employed income, you enter it here. Okay. It'll bring it down here, but you need to enter it here. Do not enter it under base or wages, or it'll throw off your finding. It's not going to ask for the right stuff. This is where it indicates what it needs to ask for in the findings. And if you don't do it correct here, you're going to mess yourself up down the line. No other employers for the work history. You can click Do Not Apply. Come all the way down. And let's say you got several, right? Let's say you got a whole bunch. I'm sorry, I'm gonna skip a step. Open all VOE and just start adding employers as you need to, right? Add a new one here. Borrower, prior, whatever you need, and you just keep adding employers until you get them all. Then you're going to come all the way down here to the bottom, and any additional sources of income that can be verified can go here. You're not going to verify cash sales at the flea market, right? You're not going to verify sketchy Facebook posts, meetups to sell my junk if I need to make extra money. That is not a job unless you're filing it on your tax returns. What we're talking about here is Social Security income, pensions, dividends, royalties, trust, unemployment, VA benefits, non educational, child support, any number of reoccurring incomes that are going to be at least received for the next 3 years can go here for qualifying income. You will need documents to prove that it's there. You will have to show that they're entitlement and in receipt of, right? So just because you have an awards letter doesn't mean you can use the income if you don't have receipt of the said income. So you're going to be getting bank statements and you're going to be getting awards letters for these things. Then you'll notice down here at the bottom, it adds up to two incomes. You got a total household income. It'll do that for all borrowers and all incomes input on this page. That's page 2 of how to fill out Encompass. We'll see you on the next one.